Drummers, this is Brandon from Drum Mechanics, and I'm super excited to share with you bodyweight resistance training exercises that you can use anywhere to improve your speed, endurance, and power on the bass drum without ever touching a pedal. Now, this masterclass I actually did for JP Bouvet's students, and he gave me permission to use it, and I'm really excited because it just came out so well. So please enjoy the ride. This is an entire deep dive into everything you need to know about the muscles and the different adaptations that we're going for with 4 different exercises. We're going to dive in really deep, and at the end, please stick around because I'd love to tell you a little bit more about what you can expect to come from this channel and from me.
Strength training for kick drum performance, strength, and endurance. Most musicians I speak to have a huge apprehension around strength training and doing any form of exercise that's not just playing the drum set. I've heard everything that working out will actually slow you down, decrease your performance, that musicians don't need to exercise. If you use exercise, it can cause more problems than good. And here's the thing, this is not true. If you think about when you play the drums, it's important to recognize that we have some very basic scenarios going on. We have the human body that's comprised of a lot of skeletons, muscles, and so many other organ systems that help us to create this incredible emergent behavior where everything works together. The skeletal muscular system that helps us move and learn and interpret our environment. And then our environment, the geocentric world, which is really the physics that we live in. And when we play the drums, specifically when we're holding drumsticks and we're hitting things and we're doing different movements, patterns and exercises, if you will, we don't really call it an exercise until we start to experience some level of fatigue. But the funny thing is, we play drums, we practice playing a groove, kick drum patterns, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden, when that muscle burn starts to happen, we go, oh no, I don't have the endurance for this. Well, here's the thing. Every time you play drums, that is technically a form of an exercise because you're opposing resistance with the effort that your body produces. It becomes a really hard exercise when you challenge yourself so hard that you get burning sensations in your body. So what we're going to do is I would encourage you to take some time with me and practice some of these exercises I'm going to talk about today. The exercises I'm going to talk to you are completely just body weight exercises. Because when we think about strength training, you can go to a gym, you can buy weights, elastomers, there's all sorts of different scenarios, and if that's not your cup of tea, that's totally fine. If it is your cup of tea, you can take what I'm going to teach today and you can really extrapolate it a lot further. If it's not your cup of tea, we can take these exercises we're going to go over today. I have one big one we're going to go over, but 4 exercises that you can do. They're going to work on all of the key lesions that relate to playing the bass drum. Now, what we have to do before we get into the actual bass drum playing idea, we actually have to take this a little bit nerdy, so just play my game with me for a split second. We have to talk about what muscles are involved when we play the bass drum. Now, this applies for both heel down and heel up playing. I'm specifically going to be referencing a lot of things for heel up playing, but all of this transfers across the board. This is just a picture of an anatomical fella sitting in a chair, and there's already some lines here showing some different muscles. When we play the bass drum, there's a component where there's a bit of hip flexion where we lift our leg, depending on where we're sitting on the drum throne, and then some ankle motion. Typically, unless you're playing a crazy double bass technique, a lot of front to back motion. It's called the sagittal plane. So if I put some muscles on here and I start actually doodling, so just bear with me for a second. We already have up at the top here these big blue lines here that you can see, and there's muscles called psoas, and on top of that you have another muscle that kind of goes from here to here. That is a hip flexor muscle. Everyone calls it the hip flexor. It's actually called your TFL. The reason why I'm showing these muscles is I want you to recognize, first and foremost, if you look at them, they're thick muscles, but they're pretty close to the joint. And if I think about this, if you think about sitting on a teeter-totter, if you were trying to get mechanical advantage from the fulcrum, from where you're sitting, if you're sitting real close, you're not going to have a lot of advantage to move what's ever on the other side. You want to get far away. The reason why I say this is that these muscles are very strong, capable muscles, but they're close to the joint, which means they actually have to work a lot harder. So if you've ever experienced a tight hip flexor or fatigue in the front of the hip, this is one of the reasons why. These muscles, and let me know if this is a little nerdy for you, are more fast twitch dominant versus slow twitch. So if you've ever studied anything with the body, we've got a lot of different types of muscles, but we have muscles that are faster and more twitchy, and then muscles that are more for endurance. A really simple way of thinking of this is if I've got a muscle at the front of my hip that doesn't have to work very hard all the time, not required for posture and standing, my body's only going to use it when it's required to use it. Therefore, it will be explosive and quick and help with shock absorption and managing force, but it's also in a place where it can rest more when it's not being used. Versus muscles like on my lower back that have to tense at all times. In fact, if you're ever sleeping in bed or you're laying in bed and you're relaxed and you touch your lower back, those muscles are still tensing. So you have muscles that have a high level of endurance and are really good at contractions for a long period of time, but they're also not very strong. You have other muscles that don't work very often, but when they do work, they are very strong. And the way we can tell these apart often have to do with two simple things: the size and thickness of the muscles and how much we burn when we work them. And I promise this is not just a random nerdy fact. There's actually some validity to this, especially when we get to the exercises. So we have these hip flexor muscles: iliopsoas, psoas, iliacus, tensor fasciae lata. There's a few other ones: glute medius, glute minimus, and so on and so forth. But those muscles are all the ones that are kind of at the front of the hip here in the green circle. Then, with no surprise, if we go to the ankle, the stuff that helps to point our foot into a ballerina, that motion's called plantar flexion. We've got these huge muscles that go across the back of the leg that come down to the calcaneus, and we've got a medial and lateral gastroc, or you might know this as your calf muscle. On top of your calf muscle, there are other muscles like soleus and plantaris. At the end of the day, though, all these muscles attach to the back of the ankle, and there's a lot more like posterior tibialis, so on and so forth, that actually help you to point your foot like a ballerina, to do a calf raise, if you will. These muscles get tired, but they don't burn as much as the other two muscles we're talking about today, muscle groups. On the front of the shin, we have muscles that, if you've ever talked to a double bass drummer, they have definitely talked about this. We've got muscles at the front of the shin called tibialis anterior. And there's a few other muscles that help to perform dorsiflexion, but tibialis anterior is the one that gets the most attention. And it's the one that attaches just below your kneecap, and when you lift your foot up and do dorsiflexion, which I'll demonstrate here in a second, is the one that's involved with lifting your foot up. Now the thing with this is it's a very small, thin muscle. So if you've ever practiced bass drum quickness, speed, or endurance, it's typically the one that burns and fatigues faster than any other muscle group. So what we're going to do is we're going to compartmentalize each of these into simple exercises for each one, and then we're going to combine it to one functional exercise, one very easy exercise that you can do anywhere. And in fact, I'm a bit of a workout nerd. I love exercising, not just for bodybuilding's sake, but really because I'm always working on cardiovascular health. I'm trying to work on my flexibility, my mobility, really all of my best health practices so I can live as long as possible. But you can imagine working on drum set muscles doesn't always relate to heart rate training in the same way. So the reason why I'm excited to show these things to you is if you're someone who's a traveler and you're going to airports often, if you're sitting at home and you're hanging out with your kids like I am often, or you're exercising and you have rest periods in between, all of these exercises are viable, silent options to work on the strength that involved with kick drum playing and not cause any problems anywhere else in the body. I also love this because if you've been doing a kick drum course and you're working on your bass drum speed and your shins are tired from the bass drum playing, that's okay. We can compartmentalize it so we can keep working on the other muscles that are not tired and allow more strength to happen, which is a very cool experience. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump right to it, and we're going to transition to this beautiful scene right here. And so, what I'm going to do with this is we're going to start to take these ideas I just talked to you about, and we're going to break them down and start to be a little bit more specific with each individual piece. So just quickly, if I'm repeating that again so you can see them, the hip flexion motion I regarded is the one where you lift your leg up and you lift your leg up. The calf raised motion is the one where you point your toes like so, and the lifting your shin up one is the one I talked about here. Most of us know this as toe tapping. We probably did this in classrooms as kids. I don't know if you play jazz, you play heel down. This is a perfect way to do that. There's one last thing, there's two last things we have to talk about before we get to the actual exercises that can be important. One, when we're talking about actually entering into the drum set, using your drum throne and making sure it's at a height that you can really manage your weight is extremely important. If you're someone that plays timekeeping with the left foot of any sort and plays bass drum strokes with the other, we require the ability to be able to pick up both legs at one time and maintain our center of mass over our drum throne without leaning back or curling forward. If you can't do this, any sort of bass drum exercises, once you get to the drum kit, there's going to be a big challenge there. So I really would encourage you to, when you're playing with drum thrown height and you're thinking about strength on the kick drum or any chair where you're doing these exercises, make sure, like I am, you can lift your feet up, maintain your center of mass, and not move at all. I don't want you leaning back, leaning forward, because it will hinder your performance and increase the risk of a back injury. Now, the exercises are extremely simple. But what we're going to do is we're going to go a little bit nerdy with my biomechanics background, more physiology, and talk about a few different adaptations that you can use, different ways to think about this, so you can make a really robust exercise program. So first and foremost, if we want to start working on some of these muscles, we can pick one of them. Let's pick the shin. And if we have the toe tapping exercise, the dorsiflexion motion, I should say, this is already an exercise in itself. Now, to get really good at any of these exercises, we have to do one thing. We have to have the skill to perform the movement first. If you don't have the skill, improving it won't work. So if you've never done this before and this is all brand new to you, make sure you spend some time, and I want you to really focus on doing both ankles, but practice doing unison strokes. I think unison strokes are a great way to go because it really helps you self-assess how are these ankles performing together. And most of the exercises we're going to do today, with some exceptions, are going to be done in unison strokes, especially when we get to the endurance component. Now, if you've ever gone to a gym, you've seen all sorts of different types of exercising. People doing heavy weights like 1 rep max and 1 rep maxes. You see people running on a treadmill doing things like that. All of these are great forms of exercise. Once we have the skill to perform a movement, I'm going to suggest we think about 3 different types of exercise in the gym that's going to help us translate that to the drum set. So first and foremost, the first one I like to talk about is really just strength, force development. And the reason why I say that is producing power and strength is a really important skill. If you've studied physics at all, you know we've got this equation, force equals mass times acceleration. Well, if I can improve my ability to manage mass, my acceleration will increase. So this is going to transfer to the other 2 adaptations. Now with this exercise, how can I work on strength here, right? So I have a movement. This is the skill we're starting with, the first of 4 exercises, dorsiflexion. How do I make this a strength exercise? Well, I'm not going to add any machines. So what I can do now is I can break my first rule is we can actually turn this and make this a one-legged exercise. I can take my other leg, put my weight on top of my foot. I'm just resting my leg on top of it, and I can actually perform the same dorsiflexion exercise, but now picking up my other leg. Now this is a lot harder and turns into me working a lot more. So now it's a strength exercise, but instead of picking up with weights, I'm just using the mass of my other leg. So this is cool. So our first exercise is dorsiflexion. Our first adaptation we're working on is developing strength, and we're going to do that by adding more weight. Another way that you can do this, and see which one works better for you if this doesn't feel comfortable, is you can actually lean your body weight onto your knees. So now the majority of my mass is over the knees, and I can actually do the same toe taps, but now I have way more of Brandon involved here. So it means that the tibialis, shin muscles, the dorsiflexors are going to have to work way harder. The second adaptation, and once we go through these, everything else becomes much easier, is what's physiologically called rate of force development. We're just going to call it speed. And so why this is important is we have step 1, I got the skill and strength. This is great. The second is, do I have speed with this? Now let's break this apart into one piece at a time. And this is a great exercise if you've ever done this before. We have the toe tap, we've developed some strength. What I want you to do now is you're going to perform the same toe tap, but I want you to try and do it as fast as you can. But see if you can do it as fast as you can, maintaining the same percussive sound that you did before. So I have the leaning forward, and I got this toe tap. Now I'm going to try to deliberately go as fast as I can with one foot. Now that's actually harder than it looks, so if you've ever done this before, try to keep it consistent and see if you can play 4 strokes in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. And do the other foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. And go back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is cool. Now we're not doing this in time context yet, but just bear with me. Because what's cool about this is now we have some strength, force development that's allowing us to do more, generate more force. Second, we're now working on actually going a little bit faster. Now the fastness, you can't go faster than you can go right now. But truthfully, the best way to get faster is to identify how fast you can go, get control there, and then increase the length of time that you're doing that by building up endurance. Now what we can do here, before this gets too confusing, and I'm going to repeat all of this, so don't worry, is we've got the dorsiflexors, strength, either by adding weight, adding me, or leaning on top of myself, and then speed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to do the third thing, which is endurance. And I'll be honest, for the camera here, I'm not going to do this whole thing right now because I want to show you in another context how to play with endurance. If I'm going to take the same exercise, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go back to the original one with the force, but now I'm just going to set a timer and I'm going to try and do the toe taps for as long as I can. Now what's cool about this is it's a very simple exercise. Really simple. How long can you perform the toe taps for? But now if we separate this and we do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and on each day we focus on a different adaptation. Monday I do strength, Tuesday I do speed, Wednesday I do endurance, and I repeat that again on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I got this really well-rounded strength routine using 3 different adaptations for my ankles, and specifically with just one movement right now, which is really cool. On the force development side of things, I'll give you one more thing that you can try. You can actually deliberately, without adding weight, try to tap the ground as hard as you can. That in itself is a very powerful exercise. So this is just one movement, one of 4. And if we think about this, we have force development, rate of force development, and we have endurance. Now, what were the other 2 movements I talked about? I talked about hip flexion, plantar flexion, and then a 4th one that I have not shown you yet. The plantar flexion, calf raises, are extremely simple. And if you've ever gone to the gym before, you can quite frankly, literally just do standing calf raises if you want. I'm going to show it seated for right now, and I think the standing variation is a great option. But first, can you perform the calf raise? If you've never done them before, take your toes, plant them into the ground, lift your heels up slowly, come down nice and slow, and focus on having control as much as you can. If you have that skill, we can start to work on the force development. Well, how do we work on strength with the calf raise? Well, seated, I can kind of apply the same principles I did before. For me, at my weight, doing calf raises here is not a lot of work if I'm trying to build up my strength a little. But what I can do is lean my body weight over top of these legs again, and I can go back and do the same controlled calf raises I did before. This is actually a lot harder for me. Now, if you're someone who's already a regular exerciser and you're like, well, this is even easier for me, you can take all of your weight, put it on the one leg, so my other leg's on top, my body is over top of it, and focus on doing the same calf raises with all of the weight I can from a seated position. And then simply, if you're finding this way too easy, we can just move towards standing calf raises, doing one leg at a time. But I would suggest you balance on something. Calf raises, focusing on the strength. Now second, speed, rate of force development. So this is another day. Now there's 2 different ways we can go about doing this. We can actually focus on doing longer bursts of speed, which is similar to what we did with the dorsiflexion. So we come up and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Unison, keeping my toes up, trying to go as fast as I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can alternate so we have some space in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. What we can also do is we can actually just continuously go, which gets onto the endurance end, and try and do 10 of these. So we're pulsing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm doing this really thinking about the ankle. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Too easy, lean against it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now what's cool about this is if we think about in a workout context, if you've ever picked up Arnold Schwarzenegger's encyclopedia or if you've seen exercises, they talk about sets versus reps. A set's a number of times that you repeat an exercise grouping, and a reps is the number of times you repeat that within the set. So we can take this speed, we can go, okay, I'm going to do 5 groupings of 10, which is really 50 reps, so it's a lot, but I'm going to call that one set. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 1, 10, 1, 10, repeat that 5 times, rest. But go back and do the same thing focusing on speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is very cool. Another quick idea, it's just kind of fun giving you more ammunition, is you can do the exact same thing focusing on 2 legs at a time. Sorry, 2 strokes at a time, like you were playing doubles. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The more we can make this transfer things that we do on the drum set, the better, which turns into the final exercise I'm going to spend quite a bit of time going over with you. Lastly, now that we have the principles of force development, speed, and endurance, this becomes much easier. The third variation that we're going to do with this is the endurance. So now I'm going to go back to the same version I did earlier, the same initial version with a little bit more force, and now I'm going to try and just do as many calf raises as I can. Maybe I get to 20, maybe I get to 50, maybe I get to 100. But truthfully, these are big honking muscles, and the more capable they are at producing strokes on the bass drum, the better you're going to be able to play. So we have, in review so far, toe taps, focusing on a bit of extra strength. 2, we got a bit of speed with the toe taps. And then 3, endurance. We're going to try and toe tap until we get tired. Calf raises. We're going to add a lot of extra weight to make it really heavy and strong. 2, we're going to work on speed. And then 3, we're going to work on endurance so we can get that stamina. You might ask, why are we separating these things? Truthfully, for a lot of these, as we start to get tired, performance starts to drop. Therefore, it's better to focus on one adaptation at a time as much as we can, and then we can really dial it in and get really, really good at it, which is awesome. Now, third exercise, this is actually probably the most important one because most drummers I speak to don't do this one, and this is actually hip flexion. So for hip flexion, this one you should not be doing a lot when you're playing drums, but it's an important one to work on. What it is sitting here. You're going to sit on the drum throne, lift your leg up, and come back down. Now most drummers actually don't practice this on their own. So I want you to really keep your stomach as strong and as stable as you can, and don't let your stomach move at all. And we're going to focus on just moving the leg up and down. Now, if you do 12 of these already with control, it's going to be pretty hard. But if it's easy for you, it's easy to put your hand on the leg and add some extra resistance. Force development. 2, how do we add some speed? Well, we can do the same thing. We can actually start deliberately going faster. This actually is a great core exercise, but also it helps you a ton. In fact, if you're playing double bass and you're trying to actually do more of the hip strokes, this is a great way to get started with that and build up the strength here and in the stomach. Lastly, going back to the original version, for the endurance, take the same movement and how many of these can we do with control without getting tired. And I think all drummers should strive to build as much endurance in this area as much as they possibly can. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take these ideas today and we're going to turn it into an exercise that you can actually do with a metronome. So what I've got here, come on metronome, there we go. I have a metronome set up for you, and you can hear if I press play. Oops, let's go back to 60 BPM. We can do any of these exercises to the click, which is cool. I learned this exercise from Travis Orban, actually. If you don't know who he is, he's an ambidextrous drummer, extremely powerful, very good. And what it does is it takes these 3 exercises, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, and hip flexion, and combines them together. So what we're going to do is we're going to be seated here, we're going to be heels up, and we're going to perform unison strokes between all of the limbs, including my hands. Now this is a bass drum conversation, so you don't have to do the hands. But I'm going to do the hands for percussive sake. Now, if we go back to the adaptations we're talking about, we have 3 different things we're talking about. Strength, speed, and endurance. So let's apply those ideas to this. So if I take the 60 BPM and I got it to 8th notes, first thing, get the skill of playing these in unison so this feels good. This might not feel good at the very beginning. What you want to do when you're doing this is make sure that you're not leaning back, because you can easily turn into this, which is going to get away from you being good at playing the drums and hurt your back. It also involves your hip flexors and your stomach. Now, how do we get into the ideas that we're talking about here once you have the skills for this? What I want you to do is let's think about force development. In this exercise, I'm not going to add any extra weight. I don't want to make this crazy hard. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take all these strokes, I'm going to play just 8th notes, and I'm going to try to crush them. I'm going to try and play them all in unison and hit the ground in my hands as hard as I possibly can, and I'm going to do it for 30 seconds. So this is not an endurance exercise, but it's really about just getting power. Now I'm not going to do it for 30 seconds. I'm going to do it for about 15 for you, But the idea, force development, power. How hard can I hit this? If you're doing this and it's easy, hit it harder. That already in itself for hands and legs becomes a very powerful exercise. Your legs and your feet are all working together. Now what I want you to do is make sure you're playing more ankle strokes than hip strokes, because that makes a very big difference. Now if we take the same idea, well, how do I work on quickness with this? So force development, try and do groups with that, get the control and break stuff. Try and get everything lined up in as unison. Then what we can do is we can bump the subdivision up to 16th notes. And I can start working on quickness. Now I can actually play 16th notes, but what I would encourage you to do is pick a subdivision and actually go a little faster than you think you should. So bear with me. So let's go to 70 BPM. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and just play groups of 4 or 5, and then we're going to take a break. Cool. So I'm trying to identify, what can I do? Can I go a little faster? Oops, I'm going the wrong way. That happens. Let's go to 80. Let's see what happens. And that's getting close to my limit. So what I'm doing there, though, is you saw the first 3 I nailed and the 4th one I didn't. So now I know I can do 80 ppm with unison strokes quicker than I can actually do anything else. But I start to fall apart at 4. So I'm going to stop there, and then I can go back. And now can I do the 3 again? Let's find out. Kind of on the edge. So now I can pull that back, just go to 75. And now that turns into little bursts of quickness using just my body weight, which is very cool. So we have the first one, which is building the strength and crushing it, trying to hit as long as we can with that heavy 8th note stroke. Then deliberately going a little faster than we can control to do bursts of strokes with everything together. This is great because this gives us a sense as far as just what our body can do and how quick we can go. Now pedals and sticks allow us to go even further, but if you really want to get speed and endurance, the more we can build up the muscles that control it, the better we're going to be, which is going to be great. Now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go to an exercise that I do regularly, and this is the 3rd version, which is building up the endurance. This is my favorite exercise, to be quite honest, because for me, this allows me, my quickness I feel like is fine. I'm not worried about that. For me, I want to build up endurance so that way I have the stamina to do whatever I want and never question my ability on the drum set. So what I'm going to do with you guys, I'm going to demonstrate the endurance exercise with this, and honestly, I do this one a lot when I'm at the gym because I can do it with my stocking feet and not bother anybody. So I'm at 16th notes, 60 BPM, and we're going to do a bit of a subdivision ladder. Now I'm not going to go through the whole thing because you'll be with me for 5 minutes. But what we're going to do is we're going to do 16th notes and we're going to play these strokes in unison. Now the second I start flamming a little and I can't pull it back, I'm going to drop it down the triplets so that way we can continue to go. Since once we drop the subdivision, there's more space between the notes. From an exercise perspective, I get a little more rest and I can get back to playing everything nice and consistent. Now, like I said before, the goal with this is consistency. So no flamming. Now, let's say I'm getting tired. Now I can take that same exercise from the 16th notes when I start to get tired, and I can actually play triplets, get more space, and keep going. And if you really want to push, you can go back to the 8th notes. But what ends up happening with that exercise, if you do that as an actual set, is you go from this full minute or 2 minutes of the 16th notes, and then you start flamming. Then you go to the triplets. You get to continue the set a little bit longer, and then when that starts to flam, then you go to the 8th notes. And what's probably going to happen, which is my favorite, coolest part, is when you're doing this between your hands and your feet, one limb or one set of muscles is going to probably get more tired. Like for me personally, it's my left shin muscles, tibialis anterior grouping, that gets exhausted, that hinders my ability to perform. Everything on my right side is good for a long time. My left foot starts to get tired. So I know that is the weakest link of these 4 appendages if I'm trying to get balance. And specifically, this is the part that burned. So now I can reverse engineer that and go, my left shin muscle has less endurance than everything else. And then I can go back to the prior exercises and I can focus on building up the strength of the shin muscles. I can build up the speed of the shin muscles and the endurance of the shin muscles. And that's why in a few minutes I gave you so many exercise options, because between the dorsiflexion, toe up, the plantar flexion, the hip flexion, and then our unison exercise I showed you, we can use the gross huge unison exercise as an assessment to figure out where you need to get stronger to improve. Then, if this is not accessible to you, or you want to just work on your weak link, you can literally in the car spend time doing the toe taps and doing the bursts and doing it for as long as you can. And all of that transfers for you to get more out of your muscular system. This is a very simple idea. I'm giving you some advanced high-level performance conversation stuff for sure that I use with athletes for sure, which is very cool and fun. And it can be a little bit complicated, but I promise it really is how strong are you doing the task and how can we do it creatively in a simple way? How much speed do you have with the specific task and how much endurance do you have? And if you find you're falling apart with one particular thing over and over again, we can take that and reverse engineer that to exercises that are simple to execute. And the last point that I'll kind of leave you guys with is any of these conversation pieces are actual great opportunities for warm-ups. The only difference with a warm-up and an exercise is how close to fatigue we get. So if you want to warm up your entire body, and do groups of 3 and stay far away from fatigue, which is a very cool, simple phenomenon. In any event, I hope this was a very simple introduction to some simple strength training ideas to help you build an entire program or idea around building up your bass drum playing. But personally, I'm on a journey to get my left foot from a double bass perspective up. I'm just trying to see if I can do that using the principles I understand with all of my anatomy background. And I gotta say, I've been doing this for 6 weeks, and how much my left foot has improved is crazy. I've spent 6 years getting my right foot up to speed, and my left foot is catching up so fast because I figured out where the biggest problem is, and I've fixed the weakness, which is very cool. Anyway, that is strength training for kick drum speed. And thank you so much for watching this.
Drummers, thank you so much for watching that. I'm really honored to have you here. And truthfully, go to drummechanics.com. Stick around because at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you, I'm so excited. Here's the truth. I have 2 businesses. I'm not worried about making money in this entire thing. I'm really trying to do everything I can to give back to you guys. As such, I am looking at investing some of my resources to bring in world and industry experts to bring you a level of value to health and fitness to drummers that you've never seen before. Nothing qualitative, completely quantitative with PhD, medical physicians, masters in physical therapy, really everything we can possibly do to give you the resources to keep growing. So check out drummechanics.com. Stay tuned. Check out Drum Mechanics on Instagram if you want to learn a little more. Please like and share and tell me what you want to learn more about. But thank you so much for watching this. Really appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.